Janell Blue, president of the Mount Vernon Genealogical Society and the sponsor of this program. And today I want to welcome our guest, Jo Pearson. Jo is the past president of our organization, and she has since moved to a small town, maybe about 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And she is now the trustee of the Henderson Historical Society in New York. And so I'm dying to hear more about what's going on with the records and all of the research that one can do in a small community. But before we get started, Jo, tell me a little bit about your genealogical journey. How'd you get started?
Well, I didn't really grow up with my family moving around a lot. And so I pretty much didn't know the family stories. Mm-hmm. I'd visit the grandparents, but it was always, just go play, don't ask questions.
Yes, we all had those.
And so when I really got into it, when I was beginning to search again for my biological father, probably about 20 years ago, and I realized I had a connection to these people as I was discovering them, and I could learn about them. And so it just blossomed from there and grew to a passion to my life now.
And did you grow up in this area?
No, I grew up all over the world. I've lived all over the United States. I've lived in Iran, and I've lived in Saudi Arabia twice.
Wow. Very interesting. So you've got a pretty broad view of the world.
Yeah, I mean, nothing pretty much phases me. I can adapt whatever situation I'm pretty much thrown into.
Yeah. So what was it like to go to a small town after being in the DC area where you've got every possible archive a person could want, and here you're moving to? Tell us about Henderson, New York.
So Henderson, when I moved there, I knew it was a small town, but I don't think I realized how small. In the 2010 census, there's only about 1,300 people.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's definitely a small community. We're about, for those that know Watertown, New York, we're about 30 minutes away, I would say, maybe 20. No traffic, which is nice, except unless a deer runs in front of you, then you might have problems, or farm equipment. And then, but we're about maybe an hour north of Syracuse.
Okay.
And then we have Fort Drum there, which has really helped to grow the population.
Uh-huh.
And that has been...
So it's a pretty historic town, isn't it?
It is. William Henderson purchased the property in the very early 1800s. A group of men, land investors, kind of pooled their money together, and then what they did was they did a lottery to see which tract of land each one would get.
Oh, that's interesting.
So William Henderson pulled the area that would begin to become known as Henderson, New York. It was actually a harbor and the village of Henderson. Before it was just tiny little hamlets. And so it all came together once he purchased it and had it surveyed and started selling off the land.
It's a pretty scenic place though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're right on Lake Ontario. A lot of the residents that were there during the War of 1812 actually saw the British ships coming in and witnessed them going to try to attack the Sackett's Harbor, which is only maybe about 10, 15 minutes from the town.
Wow.
And so they were actually witnessing the battles going on that were coming in through the St. Lawrence River.
So there must be some records about that, huh? Are there journals? And
I'm currently indexing some journals of some residents from the 1800s. And so you're able to kind of go through and get an idea of what their life was like, because they'd mention in the journal, oh, I went to go see, so-and-so, and they seem like they're doing fine, or, and then you get the weather, like, oh, we had tons of snow, couldn't get out today.
Gosh, that's so valuable to a genealogist, though, isn't it?
It is, and like indexing a lot of the records, especially the journals and the Bibles and stuff, you don't know where that person's name is going to come into play.
Yes.
So like this gentleman's journals, his are 1800s that I'm going through, And so I'm actually indexing it and pulling all the names that he talks about. And so when we have people that eventually come into the society, we can say, look, this isn't your ancestor's journal, but it's a journal that your ancestor was mentioned in. And those are just as valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
As, I mean, it gives more, ideas of what that ancestor may have been doing during that time.
The context.
Yes,
Yeah.
the context of their lives.
And we talk about that a lot in some of the presentations that we do, is that, if you're trying to get to know your ancestor may not have left any clues about what life was like on a particular day, but boy, reading a journal of somebody who actually did keep, how many years did he keep that journal?
I want to say about 12 journals that I'm indexing right now.
Oh my gosh. So in a small community like that, if it happened to him, it's a good chance that it
that it would have affected everybody.
Yeah, in some way.
Yeah.
So, today we're trying to get our members to write journals about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I know that they probably think, well, I'm living it, I don't really need to write it. But for future generations, for them to be able to read what life was like for us during this historic pandemic will be valuable.
Well, and it's just like if you look at Andersonville Prison, because I had a distant grandfather that was there in prison. He never, as far as I know, he did not have a journal. But by going and looking at those journals, I mean, I can start pulling pieces of the story, because anything that happened within that prison probably affected him.
Absolutely.
And so I have more of a story of what he went through surviving Andersonville just by looking at journals. And so these journals are just valuable. And you don't know, I mean, there's probably a couple names that I don't recognize in the journal. These are probably people that came and visit. It may have been family that came and visit. So you don't know for sure where your ancestor's going to show up. You could be like, oh, no, they never lived there. They never, they definitely could have had a connection anywhere. We don't know.
So you're a trustee at the Henderson Historical Society. Tell us a little bit about that society.
So as a trustee, I'm on the board. And so my job as a trustee is to make sure that we're following the mission of the society, which is collecting material that preserves the history of Henderson. And then what we do, though, is as we get a lot of stuff, which I'm sure some societies do. So
where do you get it from? Do people donate? Papers?
People donate. Someone in the town recently purchased a home, and when they bought the home, it was a home, I believe, from maybe the late 1800s. They didn't want any of the stuff in there.
Oh my gosh, they must have not been genealogists.
And this gentleman had owned a paint store in a nearby town. And so luckily for us, we were able to take in all of those donations. And we're going piece by piece, going through. I mean, we found, bills and letters, and his wife, I believe, was a teacher, so there was like school stuff. And so that stuff would have all ended up in the dump.
And those things, bills and letters, they include names, don't they?
They do. They do. Well, and it gives you an insight, too, of what was around the town that they maybe shopped at. Or you could look at some of the letters, like, okay, who was this person corresponding with?
Right. What era would this have been?
This would have pretty much, so far everything we've found was the 1900s.
Okay.
But we did, there was a gentleman, Clark collection that we received. And the gentleman had passed away, and he had no heirs. And so all of his genealogy research, which I think some of it went back to 1700s, maybe 1600s,
oh my gosh,
came to the society. I think it was right before the pandemic hit. And so we've had the whole year to go through it. I mean, he had generations of family photos. And so we've taken on that stuff, and we're trying to only keep the stuff that's from Henderson. But you don't know, some of these societies get things from all over.
Right.
And some societies hold on to it, and some societies will take that information or whatever sources and transfer them to a repository where it might be found. Because I mean, that's our goal of trying to make sure we get the resources to the area where we think that people are going to be able to find them.
Because every piece of evidence, every piece of historical information could be valuable to somebody.
Exactly.
And so getting it to, well, so how many volunteers do you have to do all of this? It sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I would say we only have a handful of volunteers right now, which is difficult. It's constantly on our board meeting agendas because volunteers, getting them, it's valuable. It's not only to run the society because we're a nonprofit.
Right.
So for us, we're remain money from memberships, and our town also gives us money. Other than that, we have no state or federal funding.
Have you tried to get grants or applied for any?
We have not this past year. We have been able to get some previously. We have donations that come in. We have a boat annex that was built, and we have guide boats that were built in Henderson. Henderson actually at one time had built 3 ships within the harbor.
Wow.
And so we have that boat annex that is 100% funds donated in honor, and some people have passed away, and they've left money that will go just for that. And then with the church, we have Horwood Windows that we're trying to replace.
I meant to ask you, what is a Horwood window?
So Horwood is actually the surname of the gentleman that designed the stained glass windows.
Okay.
And so we have, I think, about 12 of them.
And those are valuable?
And they're valuable because they were there beginning of building the church.
And let's
And
talk.
so,
okay.
Building the church was built in 1839.
So just to back up, the church is relevant to the society because?
So the church was donated.
Okay.
Because what happened was the congregation got to about 25 people.
That often happens.
Right. And so it was a Universalist church. And so the members decided that they knew the society needed a place. And so they donated it.
Wow. How lucky is that?
It's lucky, but it's also work. Because now we have to take care of it.
Yeah.
So like these windows have started buckling.
Oops.
And cracks form. I mean, winter storms up there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right off Lake Ontario, and we've been able to kind of cover them, try to protect them as much as we can, but now we're at a period where we really need to get them fixed. And so raising those funds have been difficult just because getting donations and getting out there. We've actually been able to fix at least probably like half of them. And so there's upkeep.
Yeah,
like, yes, we have
sure.
the building, but now like the building needs painting. So we got to work on that. We actually have a cabin also that was donated to us. It was from the 1800s, and we think it was used at one time for them to watch for the ships coming in, so that they could run and warn Sackett's Harbor that it was coming.
Ah, wow.
And so, but we got this cabin because for some reason up there, up north, when they're remodeling, they just put things on top. Like house siding on housing.
Oh, really? They
just
don't tear
cover it
anything
up.
down, they just keep...
No. So, I mean, which for our case, good for us.
Yeah, no kidding.
So the people, the residents that owned it at that time had a house fire, and it was exposed. And so there's actually carvings of a ship in there that we don't know from when. But so we actually were given that log cabin, and so we had to take it apart and move it. Well, that requires upkeep. So everything we get requires upkeep, which is hard when membership's down.
Yeah.
We're not getting that support, and that's what a lot of the memberships are for societies, is to help run the programs, help take care of what's there. And so luckily this past year I've been able to work, because I also handle the publicity for them. We were able to raise the funds.
Really?
And so
even during the pandemic?
During the pandemic, we were able to raise the funds, and because we needed about $4,000 because squirrels get in there. Everything gets in there to try to get away from the elements in the wintertime. And so we were able to raise the funds just by, reaching out to the public and sharing a story and letting them know that we needed. So now but problem with the pandemic, with the wood, we wanted it done by this summer, but everything's pushed back with being able to get the proper wood and everything.
So how do you use the church? Is that where you display artifacts?
So, yep, we have anything we get in, we have displayed. All the donations. It's full now of articles that contribute to learning about the time period and the history of Henderson. The church is still able to be used for weddings and stuff like that. So, but it's pretty much a place where you can go and explore the history of Henderson, learn a little bit about it, and to also come and do genealogy work and learn about your ancestors.
So do your volunteers, are they available to help people if I came to Henderson and was looking for something about my ancestors, would there be someone that would help me with that?
Yes, there's pretty much two. There's me and another woman, Elaine Scott. She also, she does a lot for the society. So the two of us will normally prep, look and see what we have, but we're still indexing. We're still learning what we have.
How do you index? Manually? Or do you have a program to do that?
No, we don't have a program yet. We're slowly building into the, to this century.
Technology.
So, but the problem is we just don't have the volunteers, and the problem is a lot of it is the older people. So we're currently working on how can we start bringing the young into becoming volunteers and start.
That's a hurdle for most organizations, trying to interest young people and find meaningful things that they're interested in doing.
Right, because they're going to be the generation that takes over when we're gone.
That's true.
And so this is why it's important. We've got to figure out somehow, we have a fourth grade program where we bring the fourth graders in to try to. And at that age, when I see them coming in, that they're interested.
Yeah.
So, but it's almost like we need to pique that interest.
Right.
And I think if they could learn and understand, everyone has a connection to history and the world. And by learning your family history, you're able to figure that out. And I think it would change how the world views history.
Yeah. Do you have a picture of the church or?
Yeah, I think they shared it a few minutes ago.
Oh, did they?
But
okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh,
yep, there's the Horwood Windows. And I believe
They're
he's done
beautiful.
several other stained glass windows for other places.
Oh,
and so it's not like, if they deteriorate, we can just find a replacement.
Right.
It'd be difficult. And so these are just valuable to the society. Members actually paid to have them made. And so they're actually a connection to history, because your ancestor's name could be on those.
Right.
We had one that was a child that the family had put on there.
So they etched the names of the donors, or in memory of?
Yeah, in memory of.
Each
of the windows except for the front are all dedicated to someone in memory of.
Have you identified who those people are?
They have. I don't know a lot about the history of them, but they have been identified and the families have been documented.
Wow, it
so
seems like those families
in,
would be good donor potential.
Yeah, we've done a marketing to try, or a mailing thing, and we've gotten, that's why we were able to get some of them. So, but the problem is it takes a lot of money and we still have more to do. So we just got to keep chugging away at it. And
are there any interesting inquiries that you've worked on that?
Henry Birch was one that I personally worked on. Henry Birch had a connection because his military records said he was from Henderson, New York. He was killed in Vietnam, young child. Well, I mean, I guess he was a man. He was 19, I believe. And so they've been contacted all the time. Like, people would contact, say, who is he? Because a lot of it was historians writing books about the Vietnam War. And so that's why we had a lot of inquiries, because he never had children. And so the project was given to me to see if I could figure it out.
Yeah.
And so the board agreed to order the military records, and I sent for them, got the military records, and between the town historian, Eric Anderson, and me, we went through the documents and figured out it was a mistake in the transcription.
How's that?
So what happened was, when they were transcribed...
Now, this is by the
military.
By the military, okay.
So by the Army. And so what happened was, when they transcribed his records that he filled out, that he personally filled out to enlist,
yeah,
he had put down that he was in care of his uncle. His uncle was Oscar Henderson.
Okay.
He came from the Buffalo area. He was never even stepped foot in Henderson, New York.
Oh.
But because government documents, and now there's so many history books that have the wrong information about Henry Birch. I mean, even the Vietnam Memorial on the website has the wrong location.
Oh my gosh.
And so our society has actually went and put in an application to try to fix it, because we want to honor him.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
But that, I mean, he's someone, now we kind of look at him as, you know, a part of our community. But even though he wasn't, he wasn't really, but I mean, but now we know when people come to us, if they're researching him, you know, we say, yeah, he's not from here.
You know, that happens so much, and especially bad when, it gets into a published book, because researchers take that to be accurate many times, and they don't bother to look to see what that footnote says as to the source.
Right.
And so the tale perpetuates over and over, and I have that in my own family too.
Yeah.
And it's really, you really have to be diligent in research.
I mean, you just can't trust that just because it's printed in a book or even a military document that it's correct.
So just real briefly, how did you go about getting those military records, since you weren't a member of the family? How does that work?
So because you can order, I put a letter in explaining the situation that I was trying to, but I did find an uncle of his. Or I think it's a cousin, actually. I found a cousin of his.
Okay.
That had actually lived with his mother.
Okay.
And I explained what I was going to be doing. But I submitted a letter saying, look, I'm part of the society, Henderson Historical Society. This man has a connection. We want to order the military records to figure it out.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we had gone to the VFW. I mean, because this is the Vietnam War, so there's still people around in the community.
Right. Nobody knew him.
In a small town, somebody would have known. I mean, we did have a lot of people pass through the town on their way, you know, going over to Canada or coming from Canada into the States. So we did have that traffic. But during that time, someone would have known, and there was nothing.
Huh. So that was really good that you were able to get, but just as a rule, you really have to plead your case if you're not a member of the family, right?
Right.
if you want to get military records. Is that from St. Louis?
Well, you can put, they want next of kin. And so like my father is still alive. And so I had to have him sign off that, okay, yes, I can order these records. But it has to be of someone who's passed away.
Okay.
And then you normally check a box, next of kin. But I think you can also check a box for if it's historical research related.
Oh, okay.
But just by searching ordering military records, you can find a website that'll tell you where to submit a form and to actually ask for those records to review.
Joe, this has been so interesting, and I think for our viewers, one of the things we wanted to point out is that not all records are online, and there's some really valuable records to be found at the local level. And if you know even the region where your ancestor lived, it's certainly worth going to the local historic organizations or even the county to look for documents that you might never think there would be anything there. But what a find when you see your ancestor's name.
You never know.
You never know. And so I'm so happy that you joined us today. And I just want to tell our viewers that we are the Mount Vernon Genealogical Society. We are located in Alexandria, Virginia at 1500 Shenandoah Road. We are still doing our meetings by Zoom. There is our website. So please go to the website, see what we're offering, and join us if you can, because we have lots of good information, and we would love to have you as a guest or certainly as a member. So thanks again, Joe. I really enjoyed learning something about upstate New York. Would that be upstate New York?
Yeah, upstate northern New York.
Yeah, which is quite different.
Quite different from New York City. We have more cows and dairy and
unexpected.
yeah.